What's up, guys? Zaid here, and today I'm going to be going over a budget Eldlich deck profile for you guys. The intention of this profile is to kind of give you the core deck you can work with, and then also go over where I think you should make advancements as you gain the ability to through gaining like SR and UR gems to trade in. And so to get into it, one thing I'm also assuming everybody has is one Ash and one Judgment, because in the beginning of the game you go to the bundle deals and you're able to acquire one of each of those just through the purchase of packs. If you haven't done that, do that. And then the last thing is I don't really know what I would consider truly budget yet. So if you guys in the comments could let me know what amount of SRs and URs do you think need to be in a deck in order for the list to be considered budget. I would call this very budget compared to the alternative, and I'll explain that as I go over what the alternatives are. But just let me know what your thoughts are on that, and I'm going to get right into it. So to start with the monsters, just one Ash, because that's what I'm assuming everybody has, and then one Golden Lord. Golden Lord is literally the only mandatory Ultra in the deck, and you can get away with playing one. If you're on a budget, I would honestly recommend starting with one, just because I feel like there's other Ultras you can get that would be more impactful in the low rated games. And then as you get up and you're increasing your gems through playing ranked and stuff and your budget increases, you definitely want a second. I don't think there's any world where you get a third. There's going to always be a better Ultra that you can get than the third Golden Lord. But definitely have two eventually, but you can start with one and it's okay. And then next we have the pot cards. These are some of the only supers in the list that aren't technically mandatory, but if you're going to invest in anything for this deck, these are what I would recommend investing in. Honestly, I would probably recommend starting with like 2 extra, have 3 prosperity, and eventually I would up it to both. Another card that's available is Card of Demise, but in a budget list like this, the reason why I would suggest you buy Extrav and Prosperity is because if you're the type of person that's looking up a budget list, like I would be, you kind of want cards that are going to be more versatile in every deck you decide to make going down the road. Like, budget doesn't just mean you make the cheapest deck. It means you make the most efficient deck per gem spent. And buying cards that are going to be able to be used in other decks is just more efficient. And cards like Prosperity. Prosperity is the most generic of your 3 options, being Extra, Prosperity, and Card of Demise. So you actually should probably get 3 of that. But in this deck, Extrav is just a lot stronger. And if you plan on playing back row decks in the future, Extrav will be stronger. And so that's why I'm playing this ratio. But if you think you'll use Prosperity more, go 3-2. And eventually go 3-3. I just wanted to cut down on 1 to keep the SR limit a little lower. And then last spell, we have 1 Elixir of White Destiny. I don't think this card is insane. If you were to want to upgrade this, you could upgrade it to the normal spell one. But I might, overall, as your budget increases, just cut this card in general. Maybe for the last pot. This card's not the greatest, but it gives us an additional name to float into with our, with our Golden Lord engine, with our Eldlich engine. I forgot the name of the deck I'm doing a profile on, goddammit. But into the traps, which is going to be a majority of the cards in this deck. Triple Torrential. You won't be replacing this card. This card's a rare, and it's one of the strongest cards. I love Torrential. The best combo in a trap deck, aside from flip Floodgate, win the game, is activate Torrential, they negate it, change Strike. And right now, we don't have Strike. It's an ultra rare, I believe. And so I've got some alternatives I'll go over in regards to that too. And we also are playing Triple Needle Sealing. This card's also a rare and functions just like Torrential, where you wipe the board, except there have to be 4 monsters on field. Oftentimes, you might have like a Hawk or a Conquero to count towards that you don't mind dying because they're going to float on the end phase or on the next end phase. And then if Golden Lord was summoned by his own effect, he won't be destroyed by the Needle Sealing or the Torrential anyways, and so he'll count towards the count, but won't actually be destroyed. And so this just functions as like a 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of Torrential. This is a card that if you enjoy, keep it in your list, but as your budget increases, you could trade this in for another Floodgate or something along those lines. Another trap that stops him from playing. Some of the traps that I would consider would be like Rivalry, Goes, and there can be only one. Whichever 1 or 2 of those you think are most powerful. And I've been seeing people play Ice Dragon Prison. I believe that's an SR. You could play that. Also, if you acquire copies of Max C. Max C is a card I left out of this list because it is a UR. But I think in theory, everybody should have 3. That is probably a card that you should definitely make be the first UR you get. So if you have those, put those in place of the Needle Sealings or something. that card should be in your deck. That card is just as strong as the pots in regards to drawing cards, but it also oppresses the opponent from playing for a turn. So it functions like a floodgate and a draw card, and that is insane in a deck like this where you want to acquire advantage. And then next we have the Dynamiscus. The reason I like this card a lot is your Eldlich cards are fine to discard because they're going to banish and get you a new card. Sometimes it can even fix your hands, where say you open a like Hawk Conch and it's not really combo, you could set Conch, set the Dynamiscus. Then when you use Dynamiscus, pitch the Hawk, and then on the end phase set Sanguine. That's what it's called, right? Sanguine? Yeah, Scarlet Sanguine. And then you'll have Sanguine Conch, and you'll have an interruption on the following turn. It also, in mirror matches and against Striker and just like other back row decks in general, the card's really strong for hitting floodgates, hitting multi-rolls. It functions as like an interruption against combo, but also back row removal against control. So I think it's really strong in that aspect. And it also comes back. Like if you activate another trap, it'll special itself. Or if they activate a trap, it'll special itself, which helps with needle sealing. It could help with link plays, depending on the links that you put in your extra deck. Anything like that. Next, I've got Lost Wind. This card functions as 2 traps in 1, and it also is a budget replacement for a card like Strike. You target a face-up effect or face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effects, and have its original attack. And then if a monster is summoned from the extra deck, you reset this card. So it functions similar to Eldlich cards, how they can like recycle themselves and be giving you infinite interruptions as the game snowballs. But then it also functions like Strike, where you're stopping a card so that if I go Torrential and they go Boreload Savage negate, I negate Savage, resolve Torrential. And so this is a card that you could switch out this or these 2 Fog Blades I have down here. Fog Blade is played for a similar reason where it's a negate, but it is not nearly as strong. Like I would cut this one first for sure, but as you get strikes, I would cut the Fog Blades, cut one of these, replace them with strikes as you get them on your account. And then you could like replace the other 2 with like Ice Dragon Prison or something. So this could be Strike Prison if you're not budget, but when you're starting on the budget, I would start with these so you could still like play the cards that functionally do the same thing, but at a much lower rarity and cost to you. Next is triple Scarlet Sanguine. This is the only mandatory SR for the deck, which is part of what makes this deck so cheap. There's one UR that is mandatory at least 1, but then this you cannot cheap out really and go lower. If you have to, you could play like 2 of this and put in an additional copy of White Destiny, but I would not recommend it at all. This card, just get it. This is more important than your pots. It's more important than everything. It's the main like piece to your engine. It's what turns these into interruptions, and it's one of the most strong cards to open. You cry when it gets ashed. Like, card is so strong. And then next we have Dogmatica Punishment. It is a crime that this card is a rare. If you don't own your 3, buy it. And I'm saying that as someone that doesn't own their 3. I'm not playing a trap deck right now. Don't judge me, but this card's crazy. And in the extra deck, I'll be going over some targets that are cool for it too, that are also very cheap. Next, we have the 1 Judgment, because you should have the Judgment. Buy the 10 packs. If you don't have the Judgment, what are you doing? It's probably the first 10 packs you should have bought. Second 10, actually. You should have bought the one with Ash first, and then that one. And then the Lightning Storm one. But if you're playing this deck, you don't really need Lightning Storm. I don't think, at least. You're going to have a Floodgate. It's going to be turned off. But then to replace the other 2 copies, I have the Huge Revolution is over. This card just says, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, that would destroy 2 or more cards on the field, negate the activation, and if you do, banish it. And so, this card is not as versatile as Judgment, but you can play it to stop the things that you are playing Judgment to stop. It is going to stop Twin Twister, Harpy's Feather Duster, Lightning Storm, and also cards like Dark Hole and Raigeki, if they were to play something like that against you. Anything that destroys 2 or more cards, you negate and banish. So you're going to be able to use this to protect your back row, protect your floodgates, and win the game. This card is definitely, as you get Judgments, replace this with Judgment. And then next I have Skill Drain. I think that even on a budget, you should have 1 very high impact floodgate. If you want to spend your SRs on the most versatile floodgate for other decks, I would recommend there can be only 1. But I think this is the best floodgate currently available in this deck in particular, and that's why I opted to put it in the list. Like, I think all of them cost the same, and so this is the best one for your deck. I think I would recommend the 3 Skill Drain for sure. It's what I think is what is pushing Eldlich as one of the most represented decks and rated currently, because this card is just so strong, especially in a best of 1, they have to have the out, and you have to not have the out for their out. And so, yes, I really, really recommend this. It also, with Needle Sealing and Torrential, functions exactly the same. Torrential, negate with Savage, negate with anything. Chain Skill Drain, negate your effect. Torrential resolves, wiping the board. Next, I've got the 2 Fog Blade. I talked about those. I don't like this card that much in this deck. Like, replace this with the 2nd and 3rd Ash when you get it. Replace it with, like, another pot when you get it. Max C. This card is just to fill the deck. I don't like it that much. This is the first thing I would cut. And then, but we don't have Strike. And, like, we play these big blowout cards that could easily be negated. And I want to have more cards that function like that to stop it. And so, that's why it's in there right now. But this is what I would cut. Then last, just triple Hawquero, triple Conquistador. These cards are the heart and soul of your deck. There's a case where you could play 2 Hawquero as your budget gets better. But in this budget list, I want to have the most longevity because I don't have as many big blowout power cards. So I might have to grind a little harder. And I want to have the engine to be able to do that. And also, there's not really like cards that are rare and lower that I would rather replace this for. There are a lot of SRs I could consider it, but not really rare and lower. And for like a big budget deck, I would definitely play the 3. For the most part, I tend to play the 3 anyways. Like, the card's just really good and gives you engine, but you can cut it as your budget ensues. And so that's the main deck. I think I covered like every decent card that you could consider putting in the main deck as well as your budget gets bigger. And now I'm going to go into the extra deck. My extra deck's currently 20. It's mainly just like ideas that I can discuss with you guys. And then there's other cards you could put. The extra deck isn't too important because you banish it a lot of the times. And then the only time it's really important is with punishment. And so to get into the punishment real quick, first and foremost, Natis is the best send for punishment, but it's also a UR. And so the budget alternative to the pop effect of that is Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. Neither of these cards are like rare and lower, so they're not like truly budget. But if you have the URs to spend, I would definitely recommend getting 1 Natis at least. And then you could also use SRs to get 1 Skull Warrior Skull Knight. And then the cool thing with Skull Knight, he doesn't pop instantly. He's like a delayed pop. You can banish him, target a monster on the field, destroy it. So if any instance comes up with punishment where you do not need to send Natis, you just don't. You send this and use the pop later. That way you could save the Natis for when it will be most valuable. And if you opt to not get either of these cards, that is okay. Just know that your punishment becomes way weaker without access to either of these. And then next, for these fusions, this Chimera Tech you probably won't play. It's just like if you're in the lower ranks, I've seen some Thunder Dragon decks out there, honestly. And so if you don't have anything else to put in, you could put this in and it'll function as a board wipe against the deck. But that deck's not like truly meta. Keep it in if you don't have other cards to put in the slot. But once you start getting better cards, take this out. There's the main thing that you're going to want in this deck are, like when it comes to higher budget, are going to be good links. You're going to want strong rank 5s. And you're going to want strong like level 10 XYZs, rank 10s. And that's the majority. You're not really synchroing much. Level 8 synchros come up, but that's about it. And then these 2 fusions here, the Spined, the Iron Dash Dragon, and Barbaroid, the Ultimate Battle Machine. It took me a while to read that. I was waiting for it to scroll across. But the reason I have these in there because they're rares, and there's also a Cyber Dragon Nova. And so if you don't have other cards filling your extra deck and you're like, these are just going to be extra of prosperity targets anyways, you could get Nova, and then you can get each of these because Nova has the effect that if this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, special a machine fusion monster from your extra deck. Both of these are machines. And so if your opponent is playing the Dogmatica engine and they summon Maximus, use Maximus effect, you could send your Cyber Dragon Nova, get Nova's effect, a special machine. Then you have the choice of either the Barbaroid, which it's 4,000 attack and defense, can make a second attack each battle phase, cannot attack directly though, so you clear monsters with it. Then after damage calculation, this card attacked an opponent's monster, negate the effects of that monster. If this card destroyed an opponent's monster, inflict 1,000 to your opponent. So say you're against like Strike or you attack Shizuku is not going to be like, Ray's not negated. This isn't like strict Armades, but you're going to get to destroy the Shiz, burn for 1,000. They're going to summon Ray, and then they're gonna like have to force the Ray tag out going to Kaina to stop you again. But if you just attack the Ray, like they won't be able to. I actually don't know why I use that as an example. It wasn't the best example now that I'm thinking about it, because Ray just tags out for Kaina, target can't attack again. But this card just kind of helps you go through boards, and it's huge. And the fact that it's 4,000 is relevant because we also have like this Dragon Master Knight in here. I probably wouldn't recommend that, because if you're going to play the Nova, just play this 4,000 and then you're going to get over the punishment. I shouldn't have actually clicked to get rid of that though, because if you don't play Nova, you could play the Master Knight for a 5,000 target to just ensure you could send any monster off punishment. And then we also have this Spine Iron Dash Dragon as a target for Nova. It's during your main phase, you can move this card to another one of your monster zones, then destroy all face-up monsters in this card's column. During the end phase, if this card's sent to the graveyard because it was sent to this turn, you do a thing that doesn't matter for the deck, actually. But the fact that you can move it to a zone and pop will help you break boards. If you're going second and they Maximus you, you're summoning this, and then they're going to put up a board still. On your turn, you move it to a zone, deal with one of the interruptions. If the interruptions are low attack, you could battle phase, attack an interruption, main 2, move over, pop. And so this little engine, if you find yourself playing against Maximus a lot, put it in. And if you have space, put it in. If you don't play Maximus or you don't have space, don't put it in. If you do play the engine, as your budget increases, you can get the Invoke Makaba, and he would make a good card to send off this, a better card, because it gives you an interruption. And then that's about it for the fusions. For synchros right now, I just have Enlightenment Paladin. It's a rare, a level 8. You don't get its good effect because you didn't make it with a Magician Pendulum. But when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, inflict damage equal to the monster's attack. Not the best. But there are scenarios where on the end phase, you already have this. And so you're going to use Scarlet to summon out Ash. And then you're going to have one of your traps. And you could sink a level 8. And so if you have no other level 8s, this is a good rare level 8 you can pick up. And then I believe Colossal Fighter, for example, is one that you get through something. I think it's a structure deck, like through the solo rewards. I'm scrolling to see if it comes up, but yeah, so I'll go to how to obtain. This one is a structure deck that you get from doing the storyline. And so this is another card you could put in that slot where I didn't put it in at first because I forgot that's how you got it, but now that I remember, it is a UR, but you get it for free. And so one of these could go in, but then as your budget like increases, you can get a better level 8 to put in. I would recommend like Borreload Savage or something like Chaos Ruler. These cards I already personally own, so if I were playing this deck, I would take these out, I would put these in. The Savage isn't going to be as strong because you don't often get links engraved, but if you use Punishment, you could send a link. If you link summon, you have a link. Like, there's going to be ways to make it live, and then this will help you mill. There's not a, like, you have one light you can add, but the main thing is that it's going to get you access to grave effects, like you're going to put the Dynamiscus, you're going to put your Eldlich engine, stuff like that. And then next, the deck plays rank 5s if you need to. Pleiades is either an SR or a UR, so that's what I would recommend upgrading to next. But until you get those, we have Volcasaurus and Shark Fortress as options. Volk pops a card and then deals damage to them equal to the attack, but then you can't attack with it that turn. And so this card in Yu-Gi-Oh's meta is typically paired with a card like Gaia, so that way it can still attack. And then also if you get a Zeus, those are like high rarity upgrades you can put in to make cards like this better. I would definitely recommend, as your budget increases, getting a Zeus, and it's also good in other decks, and then getting the Pleiades for this deck in particular. But until then, the Volk does good damage, and Shark Fortress lets you detach, target a monster, it can attack twice. So if you have Golden Lord, you summon him through his own effect, he's 35, you can target him with Shark Fortress, he'll hit 35 twice, which is 7k, and then hit for 24. So through an empty board, that's game. And through an established board, you're going to clear 2 big threats, potentially 3. We covered Nova. Nova's just good for, what's it called? If your opponent plays Maximus. And then this is a budget engine I think everyone playing Eldlich should play. Maybe, I can't really think of better cards to put over them. There's like the Train package. As your budget increases, you can get stuff like Gustav Max, and then Libel, or however you say it, the train that goes on top of it. But until you get those, number 35 Ravenous Tarantula is a rank 10. You can make this, and let me just read it to you. All monsters you control gain attack and defense equal to the difference between your life points and your opponent's. While this card has XYZ material, each time your opponent specials a monster, inflict 600 to them. Then once per turn, detach, destroy all face-up monsters with less attack or equal to than this. And this card gains the attack equal to the difference of life. So if you're down life a lot, this card's going to be a board wipe. And if you're not, you just overlay Pain Gainer on top of him, which can be summoned using a Dark XYZ rank 10, which he checks all those boxes. And then a similar effect, but he gains attack and defense equal to the ranks of all XYZ monsters you control times 200. So with just him, he's 22 defense and attack. And then detach, destroy all face-up monsters with defense less than this card's, or equal to. So you board wipe anything 22 or lower. And then after you do that, you can overlay into number 77, 7 Sins. He can be summoned using a rank 10 or 11 Dark XYZ monster. Both of these check those boxes yet again. And then he has the effect, it cannot be used the turn it's summoned, but you can detach, banish all special summon monsters your opponent controls, and then equip one of them to him, which is going to make him not only like a board wipe, but also if they have an effect that would trigger when banished, you just equip that one to prevent the triggering from happen. And he has protection. I believe it's if this face-up card on the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect, detach an XYZ material instead. So he's going to stick around. And he's also 4,000 attack, which again is like very relevant for punishment. If you opt not to play the, what's it called? The Cyber Dragon Nova package, so you're not playing this big guy. Instead of playing that one, the 5-headed dragon or whatever, just play this because it has functionality within your deck. It's very strong, and you're playing skill drain. And so in the mirror match, if they don't have this and you do, under skill drain, you're always going to have the bigger monster because Golden Lord only gets to 35. You technically, in this current list with only one Golden Lord, are unable to make the rank 10s. But like I said, as your budget increases, you definitely want to get that card. And these are common and rare, so you should invest in them early anyways. And then, just for the links that I have in the budget deck, we have Link Spider, because you turn the traps into it, which give you effect monsters to make stuff with. Like Geonator Transverser, you need 2 effect monsters for it. This card, you target a card with, or both zones it points to. One is pointed to yours, one's pointed to theirs. You can switch the monsters in those zones. So you can give them one of your weak trap cards and then smack over it, get its effect in graveyard at the end phase, and take one of their big monsters. And nobody's playing around it right now by summoning in not those zones. And then I have Triple Burst and Resterliger, however you pronounce that. This card isn't bad actually, and you get this from a structure deck doing solo mode also. It takes 2+ monsters except tokens, so they can even be non-effect monsters like the traps. And then it's like a baby access code. It's like definitely way worse than it, but it will suffice. Target a link monster in either graveyard. This card gains attack equal to that target's attack until the end of this turn. Tribute any number of your monsters this card points to. Destroy an equal number of cards on the field. You can only use each effect once per turn. And so it functions similar to access, where it's going to summon, get very big, pop a card, attack. And the card is free. That's the big thing. This card does not cost you money, so there's no reason to not get it and play it if you have nothing better to already play. And then when it comes to the links, the recommendations I would give you for like getting better ones as you go, I would recommend probably like the Nightmare package, just so you can have board clear, like using a Unicorn and Phoenix. And then I'd also recommend, obviously, Access Code Talker. Access Code is going to be way stronger in this deck than Boral Sword, because you could go into like a Phoenix clear back row, a Unicorn spin a monster, and then go into Access Code off that and wipe the board. And you don't have to have a monster with it. Like, that might just be enough for game right then and there. If you're playing a grind deck, you probably got like a hit or two in, and then you're making this type of play. You also, as your budget increases, could consider a card like Effect Veiler in the main, and then you can get the Helk Celine into a Access Code combo. And that's also, if you're making this as your second or third deck, all these cards I'm mentioning, you probably have some. If you already made a combo deck that plays Helk, consider just getting the Celine. You probably already had Access Code. You probably already had Veiler in your combo deck. Now you can throw those in. This is just like the blank budget template, and you change it based off the cards already in your collection. And then you make the upgrades I brought up. If this is like your main deck, you're starting with this budget list, and you make those upgrades as you go. So if you guys enjoyed this kind of content, let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what decks you want to see budget versions of next. Also, I'll leave my Discord in the description if you want to send me deck lists, if you've gotten like to platinum with any cool decks, or even if it's a standard deck, or if you have a deck that you would like help getting budget alternatives to fix, let me know. Send me a message on Discord, send me your deck, and we can work together and make something happen. Thank you guys for watching.